Yeah.
Hello, everybody. And it's 5 o'clock. I guess we can get started. Are there members of the public here too, Scott?
Yep.
Okay, well, okay. I guess we'll officially get started. This is Development Review Board, Burlington, December 15th. And I guess I'm just going to keep it pretty brief. We take up items in the order they are on the agenda. And when we call each agenda item, we ask the people who are going to speak or participate. Scott will recognize them and bring them into the meeting. And if appropriate, they will get sworn in at that time. And we also ask that when people who want to participate in the hearing, that they will give Scott their mailing address. Is that true, Scott? The mailing address, so he can follow up with them. That will be important to remember. Okay, first, next item is the communications. Do we have any communications in the packet? I didn't see.
There was some supplemental that's been included in the online packet.
That was already posted though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then the minutes, I think there were minutes in the packet. Is Allie at the meeting tonight? No.
She should be.
No, okay, because I did sign and send some minutes to Allie a little while ago. So
yep. Okay, great.
I'm hoping that we're up to date at this point on minutes. And the next item is the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda is 57 South William Street, Vermont Organization for Jewish Education, Chabad of Vermont. Is the applicant here for that?
Who's the applicant for this, Ryan?
We got Ed Wolfstein. I see his name. Public commenter is going to be Lynn Faust. I'm not sure I'm seeing anybody else.
So Ed Wolfstein can speak.
And there's a phone caller in her, it looks like, with a hand up.
Okay, so
if you want to speak on this item, raise your hand. I see a couple.
Okay. Raise hand. Here we go.
So as we get started here, I'm going to say this is on the consent agenda. This is a previously approved item that I believe expired, and now it's the same application as before us. It is recommended for consent. Is the applicant okay with treating this as consent? Is that you, Ed?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay. Are you okay with it being treated as consent?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you define what consent is?
It means it's recommended for approval, and the staff has several conditions that they've already put into the findings that they should have sent to you. And if you're okay with that, then it would just get approved as a matter of, the board would approve it right now.
Okay.
But before we go there, are there members of the public who are wishing to speak on this item? I know there's people there, but are they public or are they part of the applicant?
There is Brad. There's Lynn Faust at least sent that email that should have been posted to the site, and looks like she's on. So I would imagine she wants to comment.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Lynn Faust. I'm the abutter at 71 South William Street.
Okay. At this point, before you go too far, I just wanted to find out if we're going to treat this as consent or not. So if you want to speak on it, we will pull it from the consent agenda and treat this as a public hearing item. Okay. Since you want to speak on this, right, Lynn?
Correct.
Okay. So we'll move right to that. So this is now a public hearing, and I will ask whoever is going to be speaking on this. I understand it's Ed, it's Lynn, and is somebody else on the phone? Who is on the phone here? Can you identify?
Sharon Busher.
Oh, Sharon. Okay. And are you going to speak on this also?
I was.
Okay. So we'll ask at least those three people to raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth and whole truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
That's you too, Lynn.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I would say, Ed, if you're okay with this, that maybe the first step is to hear what Lynn's comments are, and then I'll let you respond. Is that okay with you, Ed?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Lynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm on the board of Chelsea Muse Townhouse next door. When this matter was first considered, we had looked at the plans and realized that the elevation of the parking area was to be raised considerably compared to the original grade. And we had requested some blockage of the headlamps to the cars at that time. The plan was created to have some vegetative blockage of the headlamps. However, the parking lot has been built and it has been in use. And what we're realizing now is due to the elevation of the parking area and the fact that there's such a sharp slope between the parking area and the our parking area and the residences where we are, that it is going to be a very difficult thing to screen only with vegetative growth. So we are strongly requesting of the board to consider either guardrails or a fence, a solid fence on our side, and probably also the westerly side of the parking area to block those headlamps.
Okay. And are you're to the south, am I right?
We are to the south, correct.
Okay. Okay. And the parking lot has been built?
The parking lot has been built. They've been using the parking lot for some time now. And we're getting complaints from the headlamps going into the bedrooms, into the other rooms. And given that the plan is that parking lot is going to be used mostly for the residents who are going to be coming and going all hours of the day, we think that this is going to be a continuing nuisance for the people in our units.
Okay. And was vegetation put in when the parking was constructed?
No.
No. Okay.
It's very steep slope. It's about a 45-degree slope. It's the limit of what the slope should be.
Slope down to your property.
Correct.
Okay. So maybe we give the applicant a chance to respond to that.
Okay, sure. First thing I want to say is we have no problem putting up fencing, solid fencing to mitigate any problem from headlights of cars going to the south. And so that's not a problem. We can put it up. We can put up temporary fencing right away. The vegetation won't go in probably till the spring. Obviously, this project's been delayed. That's why we're here today, because we were hoping that the whole project would be done by now. But seeing that COVID slowed things down during this past summer, very little construction got done, unfortunately. But we're moving along at a snail's pace, and we will gladly put up fencing along the south side. What I've noticed is fencing along the west side. If you look at the houses all the way at the back of the property, I don't think we'll do much. We don't mind putting up some fencing there, but I don't think it would really accomplish anything. And secondly, none of the cars actually face west when they're parked. They would only come into the driveway, heading west, and then they would turn around and go into their slots. So what we would think would be a good thing to do would be immediately put up the fencing so that 71 would be shielded because we're sensitive to their needs as well. They would be on the upper part, so 4 feet of fencing. Guardrails really don't do much, but opaque solid fencing will do it. So we could do that all along. And then when the actual vegetation gets planted in the spring, excuse me, it might take a while for that vegetation to actually do its job in shielding 71 from the cars that are facing south. But we could put in permanent fencing at that point. Nicer, fencing, not temporary construction fencing, and we would have a combination of fencing and the vegetation as well, whatever would be appropriate at that time. So we have no problem with the fencing all along the south side, and as I mentioned, along the west, questionable whether it's required or even how effective it might be.
I would suggest that.
Okay, wait a second, Lynn, just hang on. This is one thing at a time here. I'd like to just follow up with Ed's things first. Does the board have any questions for the applicant at this point? Anybody on the board? Okay, then I'll ask Ed. To the west, the grade slopes down to the retention area. Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Okay, and it looks like a pretty steep slope. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Great. Then if the board doesn't have a question, and Lynn, did you want to have a comment there?
Yes. My concern is that our units are at the very back of the lot, so shielding at least the south portion of the west boundary of that parking lot would help to mitigate the headlamps that are coming from, that are turning around in that space. So the south side would be great. I'd also like the board to consider the west side, at least the south part of the west part of that parking lot to be shielded also.
Okay.
I have a question. And I'm just curious, trying to understand what makes this, what makes this so much different than your parking lot and people coming and going and the headlamps in your own parking lot? And
yeah, so I can answer that very clearly. Before this parking lot was built, it was at the same grade as our parking deck. It was elevated considerably there so that it's very, very steep, so that the headlamps are now at the level of our second floor windows, which is different from a very, very different elevation from our parking area.
Understood. Thanks.
So it's a situation that they created, this elevated parking. If it had not been elevated, I don't think we would have had any issue.
Ed, just a question for you. Would it be possible to do planting at the, I suspect that you must put snow over that bank. Is that what happens for plowing?
You mean the bank towards the west?
To the west, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I imagine that would be where they would push the snow.
I was just trying to think if they could get a little planting at that end. That might help mitigate some of the lights to the west that she's talking about. I understand fencing at that point does look like it'd be difficult given the slope and everything.
Well, we could have fencing like all along, the entire south side. But as it gets lower, Lynn is right, because the lights would be able would go across. But I do want to point out one thing that isn't so much the case. The residents who live in some of the apartments of that unit are not in the expanded part. They are in the part that's right on South William Street in the old building. So the parking spots closest to the street if you're looking at the site plan right now, those would be the first ones to be used by tenants because obviously they don't want to walk all the way, from the end of the parking lot all the way up to South Williams and have to go into the building that way. The expansion part is just an auditorium on the upper side, the sanctuary, and there are some multi-purpose rooms and some offices on the lower level. So I wouldn't be so concerned of people coming and going at all hours of the night. In fact, what I'm told is they've even reduced the number of residents, who use the facility as apartments altogether, and it's becoming more and more of a community, kind of school, prayer place. So it's more of a multifunction of that type. So I want to lay some fears to rest that it's not like people are going to be, it's not primarily a residential apartment building where people are coming and going at all hours.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to pose any questions from the board at this point?
I have one more.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a couple of pages up in this same plan, and you can see the parking lot better and the fenced in dumpster better. You can see it on this one as well. I'm just wondering from Lynn, your perspective, if that fence sort of continued to cover the south end and then made it to where that dumpster is, do you think that would block that light for you?
Where is the dumpster? Is it, it's, my apologies, I'm using a small screen.
Yeah, can you go to page 8, Scott, of 17 of the PDF?
Page 8, okay.
Yeah. No, it's not 8. That one right there. So you can see right there, there's a fenced in dumpster. They're saying there's a fenced in dumpster. I'm wondering if.
Yes, I think if you fenced it in up to the dumpster, you'd be fine.
Okay.
Because the turnaround, I'm worried about the turnaround. So we're already getting complaints from the guy that's on the end unit closest to the back of this lot, that it's just shining so brightly, anyone that's in that parking lot.
That's reasonable.
Okay, and I think there's one other member of the public. Sharon, did you have comments you wanted to make?
Well, can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this is Sharon Busher. And at the time the application came forward in 2016, I think, or whatever, I was a city councilor representing this section of the city. And, I spoke on behalf of, in support of the development, but also about some of the concerns that were raised at the time by abutters. And as a person that has represented people for a while, I am well aware of how disruptive headlights can be. So I drove by today and looked at the height of the existing parking area and realized, how those headlights would shine right into the residences. And it really is disruptive, whether you're young or old. I know that, we all live in a city and in close proximity. And if you have children, it would wake them or startle. So I'm very happy to hear the applicants say that they are willing to put up a permanent fence, because I think a permanent fence and whatever vegetation people want is fine. But I really wanted to call in support of the abutter and hoping that the applicant would be understanding and willing to make those modifications. And I think this is turning out well for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, there's no other questions from the board. I think we have a pretty good picture. I have understanding of the willingness of the applicant to address some of these concerns and the concerns of the neighbors. So we appreciate that. And unless there's anything else anybody wants to add, we will close this public hearing. I appreciate it. Odds are pretty well that we will deliberate on this at the end of our meeting tonight.
So
Okay.
Lynn, you give us your mailing address, lickety split?
Yes, 49 Fairmount Street in Marlborough, Massachusetts.
Okay. And Sharon, we have yours on file.
01752. Yes,
Oh, sorry, what was the zip code?
01752.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, good. So moving on to the next consent agenda item, which is 24 Sunset Cliff Road. Application by Jack and Kim Kane is the applicant here.
See Jack Kane.
Okay,
Jack Kane.
I don't think we had any public comment on this one.
Jack, is there anyone else besides you?
Both those hands raised. Scott,
Lucy.
yeah. Lucy and Jen.
The hands go up and then they go down. It's like chasing them around. All right, Lucy, where'd you go, Lucy? There we go.
Okay. And so we have 3 people. Is Israel part of this application, Scott, or is he for the next one?
No, let me undo that one.
Okay.
That the names shift up and down a little
So
bit.
we have 3 people here. Jack Kane is the applicant, and Lucy Thayer and Jen Desatel. Are Lucy and Jen, are you part of the applicant or are you abutters?
We are with the applicant. We are both with Trudell Consulting Engineers.
Okay. So this is on a consent agenda. So I'll ask Jack, the question is, this has been recommended for consent by the staff. And have you gotten the staff report and seen the recommended conditions?
Yes.
Jack, are you saying yes? Who said yes there? Just so I know.
I did. Lucy.
Lucy,
Is Jack
okay.
unmuted?
He doesn't seem to be muted, but he's not saying anything. So my understanding is the applicant is okay with the conditions as recommended by staff. So
This is Jen Desatel. We have all reviewed the staff comments and don't have a problem with it being on the consent agenda. I'm not sure why Jack isn't able to respond.
okay. Does the board have anybody on the board have any objections to treating this as a consent agenda item?
Does look like there's someone else with their hand raised now.
I was just going to mention that, Brad. There's somebody with their hand up.
And who is that?
Carolyn Bever.
Yeah, she's also with the applicant.
Oh, with the applicant. Okay.
Okay. So there does not appear to be anybody from the public who is speaking on this application. Everybody here is part of the applicant. Can I have a motion from the board for this application? Somebody make a motion.
I'll move.
Unmute.
I'll move. On 21-0464 CA 24 Sunset Cliff Road, I move that we approve the application and adopt staff findings and conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Caitlin? Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, so this is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We have one other consent agenda item, which is 1222 North Street, application by the Burlington School District. This was previously approved as consent, but thinking it was under a previous application that was since, it wasn't removed, it was,
It was on the agenda November 4th for DRB, along with 2 other locations BHS was looking to locate. We eliminated it from review because there was a previous application for educational use, but our sharp-eyed compliance officer subsequently found a letter associated with 2 properties that relinquished the permits. So we are required to bring it back before the board.
so is Marty Spalding, are you representing this project?
Yes, I am. We also have with us Jason Gingold, who is the tech center director, but I can probably speak.
Okay, so this is recommended for consent. Did you see staff's report and they recommended conditions of approval?
Yes, the bike racks. Yep.
And you're okay with that?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and there's nobody here from the public on this one. Is that true? It's one of the mysteries of Zoom, who is out there. Okay, and is anybody on the staff object to treating this as a consent item? No.
Staff, no.
Well, board, okay, thank you for clarifying that, Mary.
I fully support consent.
Thank you. So can I have a motion from somebody on the board?
I'll make a motion. On ZP 21-0377 CU 12 to 22 North Street, I move that we approve the application and adopt staff's findings and conditions.
For a second? Brooks seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? AJ, are you? Okay, opposed? Good. So it passed. You're all set then.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay. So next item is our public hearing item is 132 North Champlain Street, which is an appeal of an administrative decision for home occupation. And is the appellant here? I saw him a few minutes ago. Is that Bella Chloe?
No, it's the list of names shifts around depending on who puts their hand up versus not. And sometimes someone shouldn't get tagged who did. All right, so we have Israel and we have Larry Papp, the owner.
Israel and Larry. Okay. Is there anybody else who's going to speak on this application besides Israel and Larry?
We have Ted Miles in the event that questions come up about enforcement.
Ted? Yeah, good. Okay. So can I ask everybody who will or might speak on this application to raise your right hand and swear that you will tell the truth and whole truth under pain and penalty of perjury?
Yes. I do.
Okay. And I'm always a little confused on this. Is this something where the city goes first because it's appealing an administrative decision?
City should go first to give background on the permit issue.
Okay.
And then I think it should go to the appellant.
Okay, so who is it from the city that will speak on this?
I will take this one.
Okay.
So the application was submitted in response to a code violation investigation by Ted Miles. Neighbor complaint, there was a contractor storage yard operation operating out of the property. And in response, basically to the enforcement, the applicant submitted a home occupation. That the majority of the complaints centered around employees coming to and from the property to pick up and drop off supplies. So that was a nuisance for the neighbor, as well as exterior storage in the yard, a lot of materials associated with the business. But it's important to note that there was also a zoning permit previously issued for the house on the property, that some of those materials would have went with the housework. So differentiation there, a little difficult, but it's pretty evident that that might have been associated with the business. So anyways, the home occupation permit was submitted back and forth between myself and the applicant to see that he could meet the requirements of the home occupation section in the CDO. The permit was issued on October 8th of this year with very specific conditions that went in line with correcting the violation and to achieve a home occupation, which meets the administrative home occupation requirements of Article 5. The appellant submitted his appeal in a timely fashion. So, I mean, that basically sums it up, I think.
And well, this is really for the appellant, but all the is your understanding that these conditions were met, Brian?
He's working toward that. I know he's provided photos today of showing the backyard, and it looks to me like it's been picked up considerably. But you know, Ted Miles is here, and he's had a investigation on the property too, so he might be able to shed more light, a little bit more light on that.
Well, I think we'll go to Israel first. Does anybody on the board have questions for Ryan before we go to the neighbor?
I'm happy to let Ted go first, if you like.
Well, I wouldn't mind, Israel, I wouldn't mind hearing what your issues were.
Okay, sure. So the commercial operations at this property have been increasing steadily over the last couple of years. I mean, it's essentially a contractor's storage yard. It's mostly busy during the summer period, in the swing seasons. It's pretty quiet about now, as you might expect. So I think Ryan sort of summed it up. I don't want to go through in the level of detail that I did in the written appeal. I don't think that's necessary, but suffice to say that there's a lot of traffic. There are a lot of vehicles that are parked, double parked, blocking our driveway oftentimes, blocking traffic oftentimes, coming and going multiple times throughout the day, and multiple employees associated with that as well. So, coming through the backyard, basically creating a situation that is commercial activity rather than residential activity there in the backyard. Sometimes preparing materials, sometimes bringing construction debris and leaving that there to be removed later and sent off somewhere else. There's all sorts of activities that you would associate with a construction a construction storage area. So we filed a complaint with zoning about this. The initial response that we got made some excuses about, well, there's an active building permit to re-side the house, so it's really hard to tell if this is really something related to that permit or not. I think that could have been figured out pretty quick with a little bit of observation. But it took a year plus from that initial complaint to get to the point of sending an enforcement letter. So we were pretty frustrated by that. When the applicant filed for the home occupation, as I noted in my my letter from yesterday, I wrote after reviewing the staff report, we expected him to file for conditional use review so that he could have people coming and going and have employees on site and do some reasonable amount of commercial activity here. And then as part of that, there'd be some give and take about maybe some reasonable conditions like a fence or a parking management plan that doesn't require blocking our driveway and things like that. agreeing to a non-smoking work site would be nice, although I think that might be a requirement regardless. We weren't necessarily ready to stand in the way of a conditional use review where there's some, measures taken to mitigate the adverse impact on us, the immediate neighbors to the north. I think the permit that has been granted doesn't really bear any resemblance to the activities that have been going on at the property. And I would say, activities not just that were going on prior to the issuing of the permit, but the traffic throughout the fall, it was essentially the same level of activity as you would normally expect. So even after receiving the permit, the applicant was not following the conditions of approval. I don't know technically what time, if there's some grace period where, he's allowed to not do that. But, I think the period of time that Ryan was referring to has more to do with the other violations, the physical dimensional violations on the site. But anyway, we waited until the last moment to file this appeal because we were hoping that the applicant would actually start to reduce the level of activity to meet the conditions of approval. So we're not happy to be here. This is not fun for anybody. We just would like our property interests to enjoy our backyard and our driveway like everybody else, to be respected.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Israel Smith before we move on?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Just from Israel, from what you were saying about what the primary complaint is, it sounds like from your perspective, an individual photograph that shows, the site looks fine is not going to be compelling for you because it's not about as much the materials, but it's the activity itself, comings and goings, and that's going to be kind of challenging to prove or disprove at any given moment.
That's correct. And to be clear, on paper, the permit that's been granted doesn't allow employees coming and going, doesn't allow them to do anything other than sort of have an office type home occupation. Which if that's what he wants to do, fine. I didn't seem to fit what his business actually is.
Any other questions, Israel, before we move on to the homeowner? Larry, do you have things to respond to on this?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
First, we raised our hand to tell the truth, and that didn't seem to happen.
Okay, why don't you say what you want to say here?
My house has been improved 100% since I started working on it. It's involved a lot of interior work. It's involved exterior work. It took time and people to do it over an extended period of time. When you came and looked at the property, when I had a couple complaints, I was still doing the property. The siding wasn't on. We had 5 or 6 people there on occasion. After I've told my guys, look, don't park in this guy's driveway. He gets really upset about that. Somehow they parked for brief moments, thinking it was just a moment. He watches the place like a hawk. So my guys doing the work on the house parked in front of it, maybe not blocking the whole thing, but maybe edge of the thing. I asked them to pull out. We moved it immediately. My property is not used for congregation of employees at all whatsoever. My fiance keeps direct control of me on that. I probably would have done more, had more guys come to my property to conduct business out of it, but I live with my fiance, I respect that it's her house. She's asked me not to have people come over. So I have not done that. She's the boss. I have had people come over and speak to me briefly that need to pick up money to do pick up purchases for other projects and leave. within a short period of time. We don't have massive amounts of numbers of people coming over. I think his traffic in his driveway is about like mine on occasions. We have a tenant upstairs, which may look like it's added more. He has a truck. He is not connected with me whatsoever. He has ladders on top of it. He comes and goes. He has some people that he works with that come and pick him up. They got the wife upstairs that she has people come and pick her up and take her and drop her off. But for myself, anything that happened after the construction, we cleaned out. My storage is totally empty. It's ready to be raised at any moment. Everything is totally cleaned out. I have three extension ladders back there in the back, and I have leftover supplies that go to my house that I can't put anywhere else, that I intend on building, putting in a permit to build an additional space upstairs. I want to keep it. It was a very expensive hardy siding, which was approved by Mary O'Neill and the people in the zoning department, which I went through.
So Larry, so what you're saying basically is that the activity and the construction debris and all that stuff was related to the construction on the house?
Primarily it was.
Okay.
But
and that you're okay adhering to the terms and conditions of a home occupation?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yes.
Okay.
But we don't have traffic here. I would say, if you could say, how many people come by to see Larry in the day? I would say today I had one person twice that was to get my credit card to go pick up to go pay for a bill, and another one to drop off my credit card. That's twice today. A 5-minute deal. Nobody else.
Larry, this is Jeff Hand. That sounds inconsistent with the permit condition. I understand you may need to do that for your business, but we need to abide by the permit conditions. Part of the concern here is you have not been doing that. And it sounds like you're acknowledging you still have employees coming to your home.
I have an employee come to my house from time to time, yes, but not 2, 3, 4, 5 cars at a time. Not even on a regular basis. I'm not even home. Most generally, I'm not even home the entire day. This has only happened to yesterday and today. I've tried to be home to do my audits and do my paperwork. Other than that, I'm on the run in the field all day long from 6:30 in the morning till 5, 6 at night. I'm not even home, so I don't even know what he's talking about.
I'm not speaking to what he's talking about. I'm just speaking to the statement you just made about the employees that visited your house today.
Today one guy came by, the same guy came by twice, picked up a credit card, went off, and I'm admitting it. I'm being straight out honest with you. That's what happened.
I appreciate that. And
Before
I know these are challenging times, Larry, so I understand that.
And this is COVID times, so I'm trying to relinquish my I don't want to be in the field all day long. I'm getting ready to retire. I have hired people to handle my contracts for me. All I need to do is sit by the phone, do Zoom if I have to, turn paperwork in and talk on the text on my phones. My time in the field is now pretty much stopped as of 2 days ago. I've been in the field. I don't get home for dinner till 5:36. I don't know. I'm not even home. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm in the field talking to my guys.
Okay. Other questions from the board for the homeowner?
It seems to me in the pictures that were provided by the appellant that it looks pretty clear that there was construction business going on, not related to the construction of your house.
I don't know which times you have a picture of, but I know he watches my house like a hawk.
Well, I mean, you can see in his appeal application. I mean, you can see here, and it shows a pretty decent narrative of people doing work, loading vehicles, leaving with materials, coming and going.
Some of that might have been taking stuff out of my backyard that I had, like my ladders, and removal of the stuff to make it more clean. I did go through that. I have a warehouse. I have a warehouse now in Essex that I store all my stuff in. Virtually everything except for 3 ladders I have in the back and my siding equipment. Everything's in a warehouse. 8 Carmichael.
Okay.
It's a 3,900 square foot space.
So at this point, I think I'd like to have Ted Miles speak. Ted, you've looked at this property, is that accurate?
That is correct. I've looked at this property actually multiple times over the past year, starting from the initial complaint last year. When Israel did file his first complaint about the active yard, I did go and found probably 6, 8 people in a very busy construction area working on the house itself.
Yeah.
And he filed another complaint as well at the same time about vinyl windows, and that turned out to be a non-issue as well.
Yeah.
The construction did die down because Larry goes to Florida for the winter, so it got quiet then. So things got closed out because it met the discontinued use over the winter time. And then Israel started back up with a complaint back in April of this past year about the storage facility, contractor's yard again. And I will say for the record that there was a notice that went to Larry on May 6th about that complaint that was filed, and I met with Larry on site. And there was a lot of debris, but it was still very difficult to tell what was associated with the house and what was actually a busy contractor's yard, per se, as he would call it. But Larry did do a major cleanup of the property at that time. So I'm not sure. I haven't seen those pictures that Israel submitted, but I don't know how old those photos are either.
And has, as of today, from your understanding, is the yard cleaned up in terms of the stuff that was?
Yes, I actually went by yesterday and took a photo of it, and it's a lot of it has been cleaned up tremendously. Barry Samaze and I was there end of October because Israel had filed a complaint with the fire marshal's office, complaining about a lot of debris, fire hazards, materials, contractors, material and such on site in excess of amounts. Barry Samaze and myself met with Larry on site and literally crawled through everything on the property and found that complaint is unwarranted, that there was not any evidence to support the idea that there was excess quantities of contractors' material on site. And there was no, the only thing Barry found that was any kind of flammable material was a half a gallon of acetone.
And there aren't a pile of ladders on the site at this point?
No, as of yesterday, my photo, I think there's 2 ladders on the side that look like they're associated as well with the home. I mean, I have ladders. I have 3 ladders on my house, so. And those are on the right-hand side of the concrete pad there. It's probably in that photo as well that Larry might have submitted.
So Brad,
I also had
briefly. Oh, sorry, Ted. I just wanted to point out that we got photos taken, I think today, submitted by the owner that is online. Sorry, Ted, continue.
Yep, and that's okay. And I have been in conversation with Larry about those 2 sheds, that one of them is going to be removed and the other one will be put back on the concrete pad where it's been permitted. And Larry has assured me that's supposed to happen this year. So I'm still holding him to that.
Any questions for Ted Miles from the board? So I guess at this point, I just want to ask Israel what your impression is of the effort to clean up the yard at this point.
I would say that there has been an effort to clean it up, and I appreciate it. I think that's certainly helpful. I would like to believe that there's not going to be materials and equipment run in and out of the property throughout the day, as there has been. And I think that think that the applicant is painting a very rosy picture of the amount of traffic. I think that, you know, it sounds as though he's trying to wind down. I'm happy to hear that he has a warehouse in Essex now. You know, that's great. I hope that he continues to work out of that warehouse. I guess what I'm concerned about is it seemed to take a while from our perspective, for code enforcement to pay attention to this. And it seemed to require a lot of complaining. And, you know, I don't love to complain, but it took a lot in order to get enough attention put to this, it seems. So I'm glad attention is being paid to it. You know, I hope that the applicant meets the conditions of approval going forward. Yeah.
But if I understand correctly, Israel, that basically your goal is that the conditions of approval for a home occupation are acceptable to you, and the issue has been that it has not really, from your point of view, been in compliance with that.
Yes.
Okay. And for Larry, the homeowner, you feel you want to and intend to abide by those conditions of approval for home occupation.
Yes, I do. Okay. My yard is cleaner than his yard.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I sent photos in.
Yes, we see those. We have those. Any other questions for either the appellant or the homeowner from the board?
I have a question. I have one question, and it's for both. Is what would your response be if the board was to consider a timeline condition where this needed to be reviewed to see if the business was being conducted as conditioned?
Larry, do you have a response to that?
I didn't quite catch the question.
What would your response be if the board put a timeline of when you needed to come back to the board, both you and Israel needed to come back to the board to show that you are following the conditions of the permit?
I don't have a problem with that. Anybody could take a snippet of one moment of one day and make it appear as though it's a gross happening. I like the truth. I don't really like the truth. I like somebody to look into this. I've been annoyed by him. He's been annoying me. I have no cause to be annoyed. I haven't done anything to him. And he's constantly, if there's trash thrown on my yard from people walking by, if you can ask Ted right now, it was trash thrown by a person walking by, and he called on me. He called on me. I wish he'd leave me alone.
Okay.
Israel, if we considered a time period, would that alleviate some of your concerns around how long it may take to get through additional complaints?
I think it would. Yeah, I wouldn't. You know, I would support a condition like that.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, well,
I would just like to make a comment before you do, please.
Yeah.
Israel's painting this picture of us that we've ignored his complaints and stuff, and that is absolutely not the case. Larry can tell you how many times I've been there to visit him to get action going on this. Israel's complaint first came in on April 29th, and we had a letter go out on May 6th. It doesn't get a whole lot quicker than that. You know, Larry can tell you how much of a pain in the butt I've been visiting him and actually pushing him to get things into compliance. And he's probably tired of seeing me as much as I'm tired of seeing him. So, you know, Larry has been cooperative and is working towards compliance towards that matter.
The original complaint was from 2019.
Yes, why there was active construction going on at the property.
Okay. We are dealing with the current complaint, where that's our purview here. So we're going to stick with that. Okay, I appreciate everybody's comments and participation. And with that, we're going to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And we will probably deliberate on that tonight, I think. The next item is 75 Cherry Street, and there's been a request for deferral. Is that accurate, Scott?
Yeah, there are ongoing negotiations above my pay grade. So the applicants have requested deferral, and it seems to make sense to push it back to the 16th with the other item.
16th.
I'm recused from this item.
Okay. 16th of what?
Of February.
Of February. Okay. Do we need I think we need a motion on that to defer this item to the 16th of February. Does somebody want to make a motion to that effect? Keenan.
On 21-0354 AP 75 Cherry Street, I move that we defer consideration of this item until February 16th, 2021.
Thank you. Second? Brooks. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And Jeff is recused. Great. So that is all we have on our agenda. We don't have any other business at this point. Okay. So we are adjourned. And are people okay with, we have